Hey, welcome back to the shop. This is Zach over at NV Woodworks. Today on Dunkin Junk Live, we're going to be making seashell blanks. So, bit of a challenging project. Seashells are super hard, and table saws and your normal cutting tools don't particularly enjoy cutting them, basically. So, challenging project, but with some tips from other people and some ideas of my own, we managed to get through and get 2 finished pens out of it without any blowouts or anything like that. So stay tuned. We'll get to the casting and then I'll kind of share the little tips and ways that I kind of dealt with the hardness of these blanks. I'm going ahead and pouring it. It's just going to have a little bit of shimmeriness, but it's pretty much transparent, okay? Pretty transparent. And then I'm going to add the green. Got to kind of hurry. I'm just going to kind of mix it around. So this is how I mix colors, and you know, granted, they may not be super separated, but they're definitely not one color in the end. That should keep everything pretty. And then I'm just going to literally kind of dump these because the resin was starting to kind of heat up, and we even have a little bit of vegetation from the beach, it looks like. They're not floating or anything. That's very good. And if I'm careful with how much I actually put in there, we may be able to make another triple 3-blank mold. And then with something like this, I'm going to cast this at 70 psi. Again, I use CA Technologies pressure pots, and they have a higher max psi rating than Harbor Freight. I don't go over 50 in the Harbor Freights. Now that seems pretty well packed in there. The resin, I think, is starting to set up, so we're going to put it in. Just going to pour this one in. And then I'm going to lightly kind of pour this one in. And swirl it around. It's adding a little bit of accent with this silver color. I want most of it to be red. And then I'm just going to pour in these seashells, you know, and they don't float, they don't do anything. It's just loaded up, and I'm... the other thing is the addition of, you know, shoving things into the resin is going to mix it up. So you don't really need to like stir it or anything with the stick. If I wasn't adding anything into the resin, I would probably, you know, usually I kind of mix it with the stir stick, but this will give you a good amount of mixing without having to mess with that. And then once I get all these things in here, you know, something like this where there's like kind of a dish to it, you know, I'm going to try and make sure that that's filled up. And then I'm going to probably kind of poke around with the stick and make sure that all this stuff is, that I filled up the mold pretty good, and that all these things have been kind of pushed down into the resin. Move them around and make sure that what I'm trying to do is avoid any air bubbles by doing that. And then we'll put it in the pressure pot to give it kind of the final thing about, that'll definitely eliminate the air bubbles. And so you can see, you know, with me poking around in here, that is definitely stirring things up. It's stirring up the resin a little bit, the colors. So you don't really need to add any more of that. So here we go. A little bit of blending going on in there, but I think it'll be okay in the end. I always take my gloves off before I grab this lid because they usually have resin all over them. All right, so overall, this was one of the most challenging projects I think I've ever done. I have a couple of thoughts that I wanted to share at the end here. So cutting these things, I would actually just consider it dangerous. The minute that the blades touch the seashells, they're dull. So you're just basically forcing it through the blade. Same thing happened as on the table saw and the bandsaw. And so I just say, watch out, be careful. It's kind of a dangerous situation because it just won't go through. You can't make it go any faster, and it's just cutting and cutting, and you're forcing it basically, and it's kind of a dangerous situation. I actually think that a better way to deal with it is to not have to rip it out of a brick. Just cast it in tubes, and I think that might go a little bit better. So that was the only idea I came up with. Cross-cutting the blanks to the tube size wasn't so bad, but I will say that the minute you cross-cut one of these blanks, your blade is pretty much going to be dull. Now, drilling, same problem. I had to fill a gap because the bit was wandering, and it was just a nightmare. However, the turning, actually, that went pretty well. It wasn't that bad, but I think that what probably saved my bacon was using the disc sander to take off quite a bit of material. Sanding seemed to be the easiest way, or the best way, to deal with taking material off on these things. So definitely knock the corners off, and frankly, I wouldn't be too quick to get off the disc sander or any type of a sander to get as much of that material off as you can before you turn it. Now, I chickened out in the end because I got them turned and I had no problems, and there was just a little bit of shaving left. I decided to put the carbide tools down before I broke one of these blanks and just pulled out a piece of 80 grit sandpaper and backed it with a piece of plywood. And that way it was a rigid surface, but I just sand shaped it and got through it that way. So I would just say that at the end, when that blank's getting really thin, that's probably when you're going to get a blowout. It's most likely, at least. So just be careful with these things. One other big thing that I want to talk about with safety is the dust from the seashells is very bad for you. I'd say that it's worse for you than just wood dust or Alumilite dust or any of that. It is really bad, so wear a respirator on the lathe, wear a face mask, make sure you're protecting yourself, and I would really recommend probably not cutting these things on a table saw. So once I got them shaped, it was just a matter of going through the normal sanding and polishing steps. They buffed up and they look really fabulous. They're great pens, but very challenging. So just, again, be very careful when you're dealing with these things, and you should be able to get through them, though. So if you have any comments or questions, you can leave those down below. I'm out there on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so you can catch up with me there. I'm also obviously doing live broadcasting. We do these castings live and the turning live. So Dunkin Junk is every Wednesday at 2 p.m. on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/NBWoodwork. So I hope to see you out there. We get the whole group involved and have a blast while we're doing it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.